Biden campaign is quickly trying to win back the voters that put him in the White House. The campaign launched its Black Voters for Biden-Harris coalition in Philadelphia this week. In his remarks, Biden touted the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, described Vice President Kamala Harris as an example of that. Let's watch.
To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full talents of our country. And starts at the top with the vice president.
The rally comes after a recent New York Times Siena survey put Biden's support with black voters at 69%. That's 18% above Trump, a big step back from 4 years ago when he had 92% of black support compared to Trump's 8%. The Hill's Decision Desk HQ shows Trump with an overall lead of 1.2% over Joe Biden. This is what Charlamagne the God had to say about the black vote.
Why do you think he's falling short among black voters?
I think that, it's not even just black voters. As you see, it's Latino voters, it's youth voters. I think my man Tim Ryan coined the perfect phrase when he said that, most people in America are part of the exhausted majority.
And this is how singer John Legend explained Biden's lack of enthusiasm among black voters for Joe Biden.
That Biden is particularly struggling with some young voters, black voters, Latino voters, particularly young black males and young Latino males. So there's sort of there's a gender discrepancy here. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think Trump performs a form of masculinity that I think is attractive to some people. And to be clear, like black men, even an uptick for Trump is still a landslide for Biden.
For sure.
So black men are overwhelmingly, more than any other race of men, are supporting Joe Biden.
Very true.
But, there is an uptick, and that uptick may be enough to win Wisconsin, or it may be enough to win Michigan, or wherever. And so, it's an issue that the campaign's going to have to deal with. And so, but I do think Trump performs a form of masculinity that is appealing to some men.
And while this month alone, Biden went to Morehouse College, traveled to Detroit to speak at an NAACP event, and made appearances on various black media outlets, the efforts haven't translated to support. In a piece this morning, the New York Times contrasted Biden and Trump's appeals to black voters, writing, quote, "Core to Mr. Trump's pitch to both black and Latino voters has been that they are suffering economically from an influx of migrants who are displacing them from jobs and opportunities, a variation on the theme that he used to rally so many white voters behind him in 2016. The Biden's 2024 message for black voters has so far been a blend of shaking loose memories of Mr. Trump's divisive record and selling them on what he has accomplished. But I don't think he's accomplished enough to sell anyone on that. I think a big reason he's losing black voters is because the median black borrower for student loan debt owes 95% of the original loan that they took out. The median white borrower has reduced their debt owed by 94%. That's an insane difference. When he was on the campaign trail, he said for everyone earning under $125,000 that he would forgive their student loan debt for undergraduate 2- and 4-year institutions if it's federal student loan debt. He has not done that. And I think people remember promises. They want to see a real response. So in the battle between the ideas of God versus legend, I'm on actually the side of Charlamagne the God, not John Legend, because I do think Biden is losing voters to people who are exhausted, who are apathetic, not to people who think Trump is masculine. That's such a weird thing to say, that's why he's getting votes.
He's never even taken a punch. Weren't you listening to Robert De Niro yesterday, trying to argue that Trump's not really a man? That was the most bizarre spectacle ever. Yeah, look, I on the student loans issue, I'm against the student loan forgiveness policy, but it is obviously the case that Joe Biden promised to do something about it. And hearing from when we have guests like Sabby Sabs on the program who talk about promises that Joe Biden made to black voters who did overwhelmingly support him and generally overwhelmingly support Democrats, feeling disenchanted with him for that reason and others, I think yes, if you promise a specific group a policy and then don't deliver, they're going to look at you somewhat skeptically. I think it's very clear that that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that so many celebrities do this and so many media personalities do this, that it has to be something about their persona, right? It's Trump's masculinity. It's not that Biden has failed people from the perspective of policy. And it's right for Charlamagne the God to point out it's not just black voters, it's Latino voters, it's young people. He's losing the faction of the left that's very progressive, but he's losing people on very basic principles. People are seeing the war in Gaza, or the genocide in Gaza, unfold on their phones. They're seeing charred bodies, they're seeing children. And I think when people see that and they see the kinds of press conferences given by this administration where they're condescending to the reporters, why are you even asking about the innocent civilians being killed? I don't think that lands with people, especially young people. They don't want to inherit a world like that. And it is an issue that is specific to black voters because when we saw the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, there was all of this sympathy for Ukrainians. There were Ukrainians on late night television every single night talking about what it was like to live in a country being invaded by another. And then when it's Gaza, when it's people who have a bit of a darker skin tone, we don't have the same amount of sympathy. Suddenly we have this moral apathy and war is dangerous and people get killed every day. It is an issue of race. When we talk about the supreme leader of Iran as if it's this ridiculous, extremist Islamic figure, and it's so obscure, but the Queen of England is just generally accepted. There are definite racial lines that dictate the foreign policy of this administration.
Well, I don't agree with the foreign policy of this administration. I mean, I do, the leader of Iran is an Islamic extremist and authoritarian. I think that's true, and I don't think, perceive it like maybe you're referencing, the Ayatollah had some remarks that I just keep appearing on my social media feed, saying that the American college students are in the right morally, or keep at it. This is someone who has gay people thrown off buildings or hung from cranes, so I would not, want in my coalition, but that's fine, whatever.
And I think people point to the kind of imperialism we've seen coming out of England, and they would say that that's terribly gruesome and morally inhumane.
I'm not. Every country has done a lot of bad stuff. Some in their distant past, some in their recent past, and then some like Iran, still today, right now. So that would be the difference, I would say. I did want to talk about the first clip we played of Biden there, using DEI, using that phrase, which again is something that conservatives obviously think DEI is a very bad thing. I mean, even some liberals and people on the left also think DEI is not, or DEI is at best like putting is a Band-Aid on. It does not fix, profound. I think the leftist view is that often is not fixing the profound inequalities in our society that stem from class injustice and economic inequality. To just say, oh, we got more diversity though, we made it better, is like some kind of cop out. And also the argument being that you're not. That if your diversity causes people to not be chosen for jobs or for employment and for education based on merit, so that I think a lot of people will see that remark as kind of a dig at Kamala Harris, that he's saying she was picked for DEI reasons, is not she was picked because she was the most qualified person to be your VP.
Right. There was this part of graduate school where we talked about what you do policy-wise when you don't actually want to address an issue at all. You want to do nothing, and you create some kind of focus group where we're gonna sit together and think about this issue. This coalition of black voters, what is it doing exactly, other than saying we would like to pander to you very much, please vote for us? Why don't you make good on some of your campaign promises? Maybe that would help. But instead, we're going to sit around in a room and talk about it and maybe hold some dinners and events where everybody gets to wear fancy clothes and the richest members of this identity group get to attend and post pictures and you all get to look at them at home when you can't afford to go out yourself. It's like, really? That's going to win you voters? I don't think so. And a big problem is you have these DC consultants making decisions for the campaign. They see, okay, well, we put out this great tagline That Biden forgave $7.7 billion of student loan debt. Isn't he the best? Campaign promise kept. No, this is a $1.6 trillion issue. And the majority of borrowers are still struggling to make ends meet. So it's too little too late, honestly.
More Rising right after this.